Oh, that maybe is better. Okay, I think we're going now, right? That seems like it's better. I think there's noise coming. Hooray. Oh, I tell you what, guys, sound is the. Considering I'm someone who loves the sound of my own voice, actually hearing it is a disaster zone, and getting it broadcasted is even worse. I hope this is better. Hopefully it is. I'll do the intro again. Hi, welcome to Bugwatch. I am your boy Davey, or your boy Swissley, aka Davey. I am flying solo today. No JP this week, unfortunately, and no amazing guest like Jack, who was with me last week. He was great. If you haven't seen that episode, head back and watch it. It was a very good episode. So today, I just wanted to kind of just have a bit of a chill, have a bit of a chat, have a brew, have a beer. This week's beer is beer Moretti. You can't see it there, but don't tell my work because this is the enemy. Yeah, we are talking about it today. So nice chill one. Going to look at some stats. Going to look at some lists that I've thought are pretty cool. And of course, I'd love to get your opinions, guys. Put it in the chat. We want to see about it. All right. Cool. Well, of course, like and subscribe, please. That would be wonderful. There's loads of great content on the channel. The guys are doing loads of matchup plus pluses. They've just done a Grey Knights matchup plus plus. Very poignant. Grey Knights are a lot of places at the moment. So head on to that and watch that one where Chris and Jack talk about that. We have the 6 plus plus show tomorrow night, which is our flagship show where the guys just chat about stuff, which is great show. You can also listen to that on Spotify. And tonight, if you're just chilling tonight, you're looking for content after this, 9 p.m. I believe the Black Crow Gaming guys are doing their Meta Watch. They're really fun guys, so definitely check out that. Yeah, cool. Well, now that the sound's working, let's crack on with this. Let's have a look at the stuff that I was going to show. So first of all, I wanted to share some stats that I kind of looked at through StatCheck. So if you want to go and verify some of this information, go to StatCheck, I think it's .com, and click on the Meta dashboard. You can find all the information that I'm going to talk about on there. So let's have a look. So we have a 45% win rate. For those of you who don't know, that's just on the edge of the GW dream. You're awesome. This is where winning the game by building a fantastically balanced meta. We're just at the very bottom of that. It's not great. It's tough. We are the 5th worst faction for win rate. Now, I would say, guys, that this is just for a bit of context. I don't take it too seriously, win rate. It's very skewed, right? Because you've got, if a faction looks a bit strong, loads of the best players will just jump over to it. Therefore, their win rate goes even higher, right? So it always skews it a little bit. No amazing players, except for last week. I think there's quite a few. I don't think that's registered in this data, who are trying the unending swarm. And actually, a lot of good players didn't do very well with it. So we don't have the top tier players playing Tyranids, so therefore our average will come down quite significantly, just as a heads up. But since the Necron and AdMech Codex dropped, the reason why I'm going all the way back to that is because just to get a decent amount of games played, because if it's only 300 games played, then it's not going to be very insightful information. But since that dropped, we've had about approximately 385 Tyranid GT players. We have a 45% win rate. We have 0 event wins. I think Tyranids won an event this weekend. That's not included in this data set. And all the 5-0 players have been Invasion Fleet. And yeah, that's pretty rough, right? And all the other ones not really been doing it. So what I've done is I've pulled out the Tyranid GT players games won. So again, this is 2,187 games played. 7% have 0 wins. Sad times, guys, but thank you for being here. We all really appreciate you, and we just hope you're having a good time. Yeah. I've went 1-4 at an event before when I first started, and man, it was kind of sad, but also kind of meh, kind of fun. Actually, I'll quickly talk about that story. It's quite funny. I took an all Carnifex list back in 9th, and it was I think it was 10 or 9 Carnifexes and a Hive Tyrant and a Parasite Immortrex. And I then went to the Leeds GT with it, thinking, wow, this is going to stat check everyone. I then played Knights 4 times. The thing about Knights is they're like Carnifexes, but they kill more, and they had a higher OC at the time, or objective secured. So it was sad overall. It was really rough, but I had a fun time. It was still good. Great to see all the boys in that as well. One win, 20%. Two wins, 33. So obviously that's going to be reflective of our below average win rate. The fact that we're on, the majority of our wins are, majority of our games are 2 wins or less. Then we get to 3 wins at 28%, 4 wins at 10%, and 2% is 5 wins. So really interesting. I've then pulled on the side X and 1. So this is only losing 1 game at an event. And I've split it out by detachment. So 36 players went 0 and 1. Some X and 1. 24 of those, or 11%, were 24 of those were invasion fleet, which equates to 11% of the total invasion fleet, player base. 1 Synaptic Nexus player did it, which equates to 2% of the Synaptic Nexus player base. Very small, right? What that tells me is Synaptic Nexus pretty difficult to play at the moment. 19% of Unending Swarm players went X and 1. That's obviously very positive. That is telling me, wow, this detachment's strong. But in total, it was 7 players altogether. And then Vanguard Onslaught with 4 players, equaling out at 6%. So again, a tough detachment. Not very forgiving on Vanguard Onslaught, as we all know. If you have played it, you know what it's like to get slapped around. So quite interesting stuff there. Nice. So then when I look at what people have started to do, so we alluded to this on an episode I had with JP recently, but players do continue to move towards Invasion Fleet and Unending Swarm, which make up 80% of all 4 wins. So people who go to events and have 4 wins, but only 64% of the player base. So they're overperforming versus how many players play them, if that makes sense. So what I've done is I've looked at the latest 3 metas versus the previous 3 metas to see where players are moving. You can see this on this top left graph. So it should equal 0, but because of percentages and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't quite work out. So imagine that Synaptic Nexus ends at the line. But Invasion Fleet has gained 9% of players, Swarms gained 3%, and then Crusher Stampede, Assimilation Swarm, already at low bases, have lost 1%. Vanguard Onslaught has lost 4%, and then Synaptic Nexus, the big loser, has lost 9 percentage points of players, which is really rough, right? That's telling that detachment isn't in the right place at the moment. I really like that detachment, but I just don't like it for this meta, right? I think when Eldari was pretty good, I think it never got the steam it really needed to actually, it didn't get the amount of attention it could have got to be amazing. I think the Mortal Wound strat on Eldar units is awesome. We could have made a lot more of that, I think. Personally, hindsight, if I had 3 more locks back then, I'd have been very happy. So then I've looked at the actual percentage of players. So we see that Invasion Fleet is 55% of players, Synaptic Nexus is 16. So the second most taken detachment is Synaptic Nexus. Vanguard Onslaught at 15%, Crusher Stampede at 10%, Swarm at 6%. So that's actually up from previously, and then Assimilation still at 1%. No one can afford Pyrovores, guys. This is the problem. Who can afford 9 Pyrovores? You have to literally take a bank loan out to play that detachment. Blatant crash grab by the old GW. Cool. So then I've looked at those. I looked before at 1 win, 2 win, 3 win, 4 win, 5 win. I looked at that, and then I've looked at what percentage of players are achieving that, and then took that as a percentage. So we can see, for example, the thing I would call out, the biggest number here for me is at 4 wins. If we look at 4 wins, the yellow box is Unending Swarm. 18% of people who go 4-0 in Tyranid is Unending Swarm. That's powerful. That's telling me that detachment that is doing work. So make sure if you haven't considered Unending Swarm, just have a think about it. We're going to go through some interesting lists in a second about it. So hopefully that will give you the inspiration. But not to say at 5 wins, 11% of it, which was with 1 player, which we'll talk about as well, we've got this list on, is Vanguard Onslaught. So Vanguard Onslaught can do the work. You have to just put the time in to really get the the power behind it. Invasion Fleet obviously takes up the lion's share of every single faction because it is our white bread, it is our vanilla flavor of Tyranids, old, reliable, doing well. But you tend to see as it goes up, You know, as more wins go up, actually the percentage of players playing Invasion Fleet is higher. And that's because the other detachments are like taking share of that player base as 1 win and 2 win. You know, we see a lot of Vanguard Onslaught at 1 win and 2 wins because it's just so unforgiving. It will betray you. You'll be like, I'm going to have a great time, and it will go, ha 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 ha. That's what you think, my friend. I'm going to put you into Grey Knights 3 times, and they're going to teleport within 9 and outside, within 12, but outside of 9, and just shoot you to death. So good times. I did look as well, since the Dark Angels Codex, only Invasion Fleet and Swarm have actually gone past 4 wins. For games won, not 5 wins, only 4 wins. So really interesting there to see like those 2 detachments are the ones that's really working, guys. Cool. If you have any thoughts on that, put it in the chat. I want to hear it. I want to chat about it. Cool. So let's look at some lists, right? Kevin Davies. Very excited about Kevin Davies. Has been on the channel a few times with his list. Always comes up with a cool list. Always performs really well. I'm actually at an event with him in June at Nailhammer, so I'm looking forward to meeting him, and we can chat about how his lists do. This list did really well. It went 4-1 at Battlefield Birmingham. It's Invasion Fleet, all white bread. But let's go through it. So this is what I would kind of call like your standard. If you're looking to do Invasion Fleet or you're looking to start doing this is a great place to start because it has loads of powerful bits in it. So you've got Death Leaper, you've got Old One Eye, which we'll see how where he goes in a minute. We've got a Hive Tyrant. He's got the Heavy Venom Cannon and Bone Sword. And we also have a Neuro Tyrant. So pretty much, you know, like Death Leaper's always good because he's good value at 80 points. We've got Old One Eye, who, as I say, we'll talk about in a second. We've got a Hive Tyrant, so you're going to get those free 5-up Feel No Pain strats, really good. As well as maybe something like crits on 5s in your turn, which is really cool. And then we have a Neuro Tyrant. So Neuro Tyrant is, you know, in a lot of lists at the moment. It's just really good. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but its value has gone down since the turn of the meta because Necron units led by characters have leadership 6. Custodes, leadership 6. I don't know how big those guys are in the meta at the moment. I should check really, but when I go to events, I'm not seeing as many Custodes as I think I'm going to see. I'm seeing a fair few Necrons, but you know, but the perception is that they're rare and they're everywhere. Marines, obviously, when they have characters leading the units, you know, the units that matter, they're all leadership 6 as well. So actually, a Neuro Tyrant loses that power when so many good leadership armies are in the meta. If it was all Orcs and Tau, I wonder if Orcs and Tau are going to be good in the future. Then I think the Neuro Tyrant value goes up, right? So that's my take on it. What's nice is, and I talked about it on the Shadow in the Warp episode, Death Leaper and the Neuro Tyrant, really good combo. You just throw Death Leaper out there in your turn, in between loads of units, maybe charge an easy one that won't kill it, and then have that 6-inch aura of -1 leadership, which stacks with the Neuro Tyrant's -1 leadership. And all of a sudden, you've got Custodes units failing their battle shock tests at 56% of the time. Yay, fun times. 3 times 10 Gargoyles, because Gargoyles are amazing. Even at 80 points, they're still great. Fire and Fade Shenanigans is fantastic. We've got a Biovore because, of course, we have 5 Gene Stealers, who I'm coming round on the 5 Gene Stealers. I think they're really good little skirmishing units, clear a screen, all that kind of stuff. 2 Lictors, which is quite interesting. We're seeing a lot of people move from Neuro Lictors to actual Lictors because they're a little bit cheaper. 2 Pyrovores, which is quite good, and we'll see how they pair up in a second with another unit. We have 2 Carnifexes. They're being led by All One Eye, and they've got the Death Spitters and Slimer Maggots because they've got those full rerolls. In Invasion Fleet is super strong because obviously you're going to have lethals or sustained. You're not going to have precision realistically, but you could have those other ones. You got 2 Exocrines because Exocrines are our best shooting platform, and then you have 2 Maliceptors because they benefit from the Exocrine, they benefit from the Pyrovore, they link up quite nicely because they've only got AP2 and everyone has bloody cover and armor of contempt, so they can absolutely negate Maliceptor shooting. But if you bring a Pyrovore out of nowhere, flame them, they're going to lose the benefit of cover. So very good. Maliceptor is also probably one of my favorite units in the meta at the moment because what they do is they have that 6-inch aura of -1 to hit. So when you're fighting over an objective, putting custodies on a threes to hit, or putting Necrons on sometimes fives to hit is super fun, super good. So Maliceptor's definitely, if you haven't got one, go out there and get one. So let's look at Kevin's run. So Kevin's run, so he beat, have I got this the right way around? I think I've got it the wrong way around. So the first game was actually the loss, which was the eventual 5-0 Wolf Jail list. So that Wolf Jail list is so good, and obviously a really hard game for Kevin to start with there. So I think he lost that one first. He then went into 9 Death Guard characters and friends, which he did very well. And I think, if I'm rightly saying, Kevin did like win by 20 points at least in most of these games. Then he went into Eldar Good Stuff with also 2 Fire Prisms. Fire Prisms are great, but very expensive, I think. And, you know, do you get the value out of them at the moment? I'm not sure. But to beat Eldari Good Stuff with with Warp Spiders and Swooping Hawks and all that kind of stuff, doing actions, very, very impressive. A CSM list with a few flavorful inclusions. I think it had Raptors in there, which is quite fun, but not necessarily good. Obviously, he did fairly well at the event, though. But Kevin saw him off. And then in his final game, Kevin then beat Knights, Imperial Knights. So you don't tend to see them on the higher tables at the end of tournaments, but fair play, well done. And 2 big Knights as well. It wasn't just like, you know, a load of little bodies. So a few armigers, don't get me wrong, and then 2 big lad Imperial Knights. And Kevin saw them all off, so very good. So interesting bits, things I would take away from this. Old One Eye and friends are back. Who said they ever left? It's still a really good combo, guys. So I definitely recommend that you consider them when you are looking at Invasion Fleet. Maliceptus and Pyro, name a more iconic duo. Like, they're just so good together. Exocrines hold hands with everyone, so they make sure everyone's hitting on reroll 1s. And then finally, those Lictors over Neurolictors. They're very expensive Neurolictors, and I think more and more people are starting to go, I quite like Fight First and Damage too. So very good. So yeah, well done to Kevin. Really great to see this list do well. Just quickly looking at the chat, we have Brain Seller, who is a member of our Discord, and great crack, always very fun in the Discord. And he says that Vanguard tricks you into thinking Winged Hive Tyrants can be really good. It's funny you say that. I actually think they are good. I think they're rubbish on UKTC terrain because you can't hide them and you can't get them around buildings. But on GW terrain, when I went to Goonhammer, I took a Winged Hive Tyrant and I loved it. It was so good. I think it's funny. I think it really is terrain dependent, that unit. And that's probably the only time I'll ever play it. I'll only ever play it at Goonhammer events because they're the only events I go to that has that terrain at the moment. I'm looking for more GW terrain. Hit me up if your event is GW terrain. Cool. So that is Kevin's list. Next up, I want to talk about some innovation in Unending Swarm and maybe even Invasion Fleet. So, Unending Swarm, I can tell you this from my own experience. I've been playing Unending Swarm since like the turn of the year. And I actually was playing a league game with it the other day, and it was an old version of my list because, you know, you have to submit a list and then you play loads of games later, and all of a sudden I submitted a list that I was playing with like 4 weeks later, and I was like, oh god, I have to play this crap list again. And it was very aimed at like just being very passive, killing very little, and I was so miserable playing it. We called it at turn 3. I said, look mate, I don't want to move these models anymore, and you've absolutely ruined me, because I was playing against Firestorm, the one where you can jump out and shoot and do all the things, right? He had 1,000,000 bullets and I had 1,000,000 bodies, so it kind of didn't work out very well. But this was like, I've went to events, I've won RTTs with Unending Swarm, but at GTs it kind of always gets to 3 games and 3 wins, and then that's it. And that's, I think, you know, for sure I can get better with that list, but my brain I'd had it. I am like toasted with that detachment. I will go back to it eventually, but what I found essentially was it couldn't deal with threats, right? It was really struggled with the list I was playing, which was kind of like Sam Pope's list. I always found just getting rid of my opponent's threats was very difficult. We have seen some amazing innovation from Lucas Golonka, who's been going to team events. He's from Team Poland, I believe, with this cool take on the Swarm. So he's got Death Leaper and a Neuro Tyrant. That's all the characters. No Hive Tyrants and no Tervigans. A lot of people were saying you have to take one or the other. Lucas don't think so. Lucas is like, hey, Death Leap and Neurotyrant, and that's me. We've then got the Swarm units. 2 times 20 Gargoyles and 2 times 10 Gargoyles. So you got those 2 bricks that you kind of, I suppose, interchange. You say, okay, this one goes forward and dies, 2 CP, put it in reserve. While that one's in reserve, the other one goes forward. Or you use both of them at the same time and really block your opponent in. Hope one of them doesn't die, because hopefully they don't have enough bullets to kill 40 Gargoyles in a turn. So very good. 2 times 10. Now, you could, there's conjecture on, I think, how you would use these, but my opinion is you can use them to screen specific threats. You can also bring them in from deep strike and steal objectives, although a lot of opponents, especially at high levels, can play around that now. They know what you're trying to do with Gargoyles. So maybe it's more like just like mini screens to kind of just specific threats come through the lines, or even screening. Because if your Gargoyles go right to your opponent's line and you've still got everything mostly no deployment zone, there's a lot of space in those other areas that you could screen out with 10 Gargoyles. Right, so there's the Swarm. We know what the Swarm does, right? You kill the unit, it comes back. That's Swarm. Then we look at the other units, which is the most interesting part of this video. Biovore, of course. Then 3 Exocrines, 2 Maliceptors, loads of Neurogaunts, 2 Neurolictors, 2 times 3 Zoanthropes. Popping these units in, and I believe there was another version of this list actually which had a Tyrannofex with a Flamer in it as well. Adding these units, like the killing units, our best shooting platforms, into this list massively buffs up the power of the list and the detachment. And you can see it in Lucas's results when you go and look at the team's tournaments. I think it caught a lot of people off guard. The Zoanthropes obviously buff the Gargoyles a little bit, giving them a 6-up invuln. 1 in 6 Gargoyles doesn't die. I mean, you know, how great is that? But having 3 las cannons just ready to shoot someone is quite good, especially with the Exocrines buffing them with reroll 1s. So that's quite good. I hate Zoanthropes, and I hope you do too, because they hit on 3s, or do they hit on 3s? Because they always seem to roll 2s. But yeah, anyway, that's just my vibe. You have 2 Neurolictors in there as well, so they're going to try and battle shock your opponents and make sure those objectives are still yours. So if you're fighting over mid-table objectives with Exocrines and Maliceptors, who have decent OC, by the way, you can make sure you get it by trying to battle shock units with a safely located Neurolictor. So very cool. And then 22 and 11 Neurogaunts, just I imagine to create screens, gum up the board, screen, etc. as well. Then we saw a lot of people then take that list to things like the Manchester UKTC event in Manchester. I can't think what it's called. It's the Manchester GT. That's what it's called. Oh, I'm going to have a drink. We saw a lot of people take it. Ben Jones did very well with it. We went 4-1. Ben Jones of Vanguard Tactics, I believe. And you can see that his list is slightly different. He drops the 11 Neurogaunts and puts in 2 times 3 Ripper Swarms. And I think that's the only change. Yeah. So, like, you know, great. Like, it shows you the flexibility of the list. You can actually just put some Rippers in there instead. But that kind of style of list is doing very well. So if you are into swarms, but you don't want to use 140 gaunts, this is an option for you. You can use 40 gaunts and monsters to blow things to pieces. That's pretty cool. So one thing I think is quite interesting here, and we're seeing it in a lot of lists, 2 Maliceptors, 3 Exocrines, or 2 Maliceptors, 2 Exocrines. We're seeing a lot of those pairings come through. That kind of, what would you call it, package. And then even we saw Frank Guerra do it with Invasion Fleet, and he went 5-1. I think it's the Rocky Mountain Open, was it? It was it was an event in America. I can't think what it's called. But he did very well. Again, Neurotyrant, 3 times 10 Gargoyles. So the Gargoyles very important for Invasion Fleet as well. 10 Termagants, an easy extend battle lines or something like that. We then have the Biovore, because of course we've got 2 Lictors, 2 Neurolictors, probably little tech pieces, realistically. 6 Raveners. Really interested in Raveners at the moment. Watch this space on that. Then we have 3 Von Ryan's Leapers. Nice and really cool unit to just, you know, stop all that scout move that's knocking about at the moment. And then we have that package, 3 times Exocrines, 2 times Maliceptor. So that seems to be a good basis to start a list with at the moment. It's a very powerful combination, and the units are, I suppose, cheap for what they do. Maybe the Malicept is probably rightly pointed. I think the Excorine's still cheap, so definitely take it. And then those gun profiles do very well into a meta at the moment of 3 wounds, or just doing as much damage per shot as possible. So definitely something to check out and think about when you're building your lists. Cool. And then finally, we've got Bendraa. So this is the list that you might have seen knocking about. It's from Adepticon with Vanguard Onslaught. My old love, Vanguard Onslaught. And in this list, we've got Death Leaper, we've got a Broodlord with Neuronode that allows you to redeploy 3 Vanguard Invader units. We've got a Hive Tyrant with Winged Hive Tyrant with Chameleonic, so I believe that gives him stealth, and the Bone Sword. So sadly, no Hunting Grounds. I'd love to see Hunting Grounds in this list, especially in the meta at the moment where you've got teleporting Necrons everywhere, teleporting Grey Knights everywhere, although you have to check with your TO whether the Grey Knights one counts, because it doesn't technically say Strategic Reserve. We have a Biovore, 10 Gene Stealers. Now, just as a note, you can actually go onto War Games Live. By the way, big shout out to Joe. Like, his channel's amazing. I watch far too much of that. I love watching games. And you can see this list go against World Eaters. And Ben, the way he plays this list is so cool. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but they kill Anger on turn 1, right? It's a little bit lucky, but it's such a good game to watch. And if you're interested in playing Vanguard Onslaught and you're sick of playing the Duck and Weave version, go and check out this. It's pretty aggressive. So you've got 10 Gene Stealers led by that Broodlord, obviously, getting right across the board. We have 2 Lictors and 1 Neurolictor. Really interested in that. I guess that's to make sure he's scoring his 10, or to get a bit of redundancy, making sure he's scoring his 10 on primary throughout all the missions, or rather his 2 objectives rather than his 10. We've got a Pyrovore in there, obviously to link with the Maliceptor that's coming up. 3 Von Ryan's Leapers to stop his opponent getting any ideas of scouting forward and getting forward, or infiltrating into his lines. Then we have the spicy 6 Zoanthropes. 2 times 3 Zoanthropes. Okay. Now we're talking. We got a Ripper Swarm in there just because, you got 20 points left and you don't want to spend it on Hunting Grounds, then you go for Ripper Swarm. Then even more, but you thought that was spicy. Wait until you see the second course, baby. The second course is 2 Harrispexes. Harrispexes, guys. We all thought they'd be amazing at 125 points or whatever they are, and none of us used them. Maybe we've been spoilt this entire time, and Harrispexes have been the one, because Ben went, you know what, maybe 1? No. I'm going to have 2 Harrispexes. And I think it's just a massive amount of wounds that your opponent has to kind of deal with. I also think the terrain here, again, GW terrain, I believe it was, there was pieces of terrain that were ruins, but short enough that monsters, etc., could just walk over them. So you got those 2 Harrispexes just making chaos as they run at their opponent. You got a Maliceptor, which in the game that I saw on stream, moved into the middle and just kind of owned that space. Was kind of like a bit of a quarterback, waiting for any of the World Eaters units to attack or get into position. And then we have a Trigon, which is interesting as well. I think Trigons are great. Me and JP are really big fans of Trigon. He was even fan of the second Trigon. Yeah, double Trigon. Bygone, you might call it. God, my jokes are shit, aren't they? But yeah, so overall, really interesting list. The run was also really, really cool. So he went through Canoptic Court, which had more Doomstalkers than I think you usually see in Canoptic Court, but still, Canoptic Court is no joke. So well done for beating that. He then went into Drukhari Good Stuff, so, Drukhari's no joke either at the moment. He then went into a Dread and Reaper heavy Ultramarines Ironstorm. Now, guys, how many times have we all said to each other, man, wouldn't it be great if Tyranids could destroy vehicles? I can't wound a vehicle. Vehicles are hard. We can't beat vehicles. Ben just went, yeah, I'm just going to go and smash it. So he beat them. So well done to Ben. On that, I would love to know how that game went and what his plan was to beat him and how he executed it. He then went into a really cool CSM list that had bikes, tanks, and warp talons. Like, it was really, really interesting, with Abaddon leading it. He then went into a rejigged 1975 World Eaters list, which was the one on stream. So I recommend you go and watch that. He then lost to eventual winner. The eventual winner, which I can't think what his name is off the top of my head, but he was playing T-Suns with tons of Exalted Sorcerers on discs, so loads of mortal wounds. And it was a really close game. I think there was only 15 points in it. So really unfortunate. He never quite got to the final, but well done to Ben. Like, that is sick. Really great performance. So again, some of these interesting bits, just to recap, reasonably light on Vanguard Invader units. When I built my Vanguard Invader units, I was like hype on trying to make everything lawn up and blah, blah, blah. And I think what Ben really is using in this detachment is that first turn deep strike, perhaps, maybe even the, obviously the redeploy, which is quite good because you can keep your opponent guessing, and you can make them think you're not being aggressive, then just be hyper aggressive, or vice versa. Especially not relying on forward deploying units, because the Gene Stealer scout, if you put the Gene Stealers down and someone tries to block them with their infiltrating unit, you just move them to the side of the board. Like, haha, what do you think of that? But yeah, we're not seeing a lot of Invader units. Oh, the other stratagem, of course, picking up 6 Zoanthropes at the end of your opponent's turn and then redeploying them. Like our own Las Cannon Centurion squad. Like, cool. That's really good use of that. I suppose the challenge is keeping them alive and making sure they do not die immediately. Yeah, Harrispecs, or in fact, double check. That's 2 Harrispexes. I would love to hear what drove that idea, but I expect, I hope that I'm right when I say this, that it's just a bunch of wounds to put on the table and move towards your opponent so that they have to deal with it after they've killed the Gene Stealers. Yeah, 2 Lictors and 1 Neuro, so it's really interesting to see how people are splitting that mix at the moment, because everyone has a Lictor, everyone has a Neuro Lictor. It's then, which one do you take? Winged Hive Tyrant, of course, as I mentioned before, does real good work on GW terrain. And then a Trigon makes the cut over that second Maleceptor. Again, another really interesting decision point. As I said before, double Maleceptor is quite popular at the moment, but a Trigon making it in over the second Maleceptor is really, really interesting. I think for me, the utility of a Trigon is so good. Obviously, you have the 3-inch deep strike, which makes your opponent either adjust their entire game plan and try and screen it out, or let you have whatever you want to do with it. In which case, if you want to just bring it, put it in their deployment zone behind a piece of terrain, and then do what you want with it, whether that's deploy teleport homers or make a play for their back objective, all these different things. Yeah, it's just super interesting to see that the Trigon doing very well there. So cool. I think, yeah. So my key takeaways, really, we're not well positioned in the meta, right? We looked at that at the start of the episode. Scroll back if you haven't seen it, but missed the bit where I'm on mute. We're not well positioned in the meta. We're having a hard time, and it comes through in our win rate. So plan accordingly, have fun, experiment, right? If you're the one guy in the entire world that has 9 Paravors, why not take a Simulation Swarm, right? Give it a go. Tyranid players are moving back to Invasion Fleet, and Unending Swarm has really caught the eye of some really strong win rate player bases. So we're seeing a lot of people move into Unending Swarm and do quite well with it. So that obviously has legs. Invasion Fleet, I think the people played Invasion Fleet before the Codex, obviously. Codex came out, everyone went, let's go and play all these different detachments. And then they've all went, actually, Invasion Fleet's pretty damn good. We're going to go back to that. And we see that with, I think, our 55% detachment representation within the entire Tyranid community. With Vanguard, maybe moving away from the units we think are good in Vanguard or have the detachment abilities, and actually just putting our best units in that detachment might be the best way forward, like Ben's shown us. Big damage guns are for the meta, so tanks, custodies, etc. absolutely hit 3 damage or high damage, and that's pretty much the best we have. Sure, you could take a rupture effects. Why not? Probably because it's a lot of points and you're going to roll 2 2s every single time you shoot it. Gargoyles are still super great after the point increase, so make sure you're considering them when you're list building. And lastly, but not leastly, no one can afford 9 Paravors. Sad assimilation noises. Cool. And that, guys, is the end of the show this time. So a nice short and sweet. I say short and sweet, 36 minutes. That's not bad. Of course, come and join our Discord. The link is in the video description. I would love to see you there. Only cool people are allowed, of course. We have a very chill community of Tyranid players over there where we just chat the game and how we're planning for the future. Of course, go and see a lot more of our content that's on the channel. Please subscribe because we have loads of content that's very much focused on competitive 40k and how to kind of get ahead and learn constantly. We're all big learners in 6++. We love evaluating ourselves and progressing through the scene. So please, by all means, come and join us for more great conversations about that. But for now, I will see you later. Have a great one. And yeah, go and win some games. Get that win rate up, guys. Ta-ra. Bye.